Yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Welker, who's your employer?
Range Resources.
And what position you hold with Range?
I'm the Water Operations Manager.
And generally, what are your responsibilities in that position?
I oversee execution of all range water operations, both in the southwest Pennsylvania area as well as our minimal operations in the northeast PA area.
And how long have you been with Range?
About 10 years. I started in 2010.
And just briefly, what have your job positions been since you started till now?
2010, I started as a Water Operations Supervisor 1, which is our entry-level field position, boots on the ground oversight of water transfer operations. And then in 2012, I became a Water Operations Supervisor 2. That comes with some supervisory experience. So I've had direct reports. I also started doing some permitting responsibilities, permitting our temporary water plants. In 2014, I became the Water Operations Area Supervisor. That was more involved in the long-range planning, scheduling, budgeting aspects of the job. In 2018, I became the manager.
Just briefly, prior to Range, what were your educational and employment background?
I graduated from Cal U in 2006 with a BS in Environmental Studies and a concentration in Fisheries Management. I also, after college, I worked for the North Carolina Division of Marine Fisheries, the fisheries technician. That was from 2007 to 2010 in their striped bass program.
Is it fair to say that in your various capacities at Range, you're familiar with its water operations generally and in Cecil Township and the surrounding areas?
Yes.
And are you familiar with the planning of water operations for the Connor pad as well as the Schultz pad, which the hearing will follow this hearing?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just briefly, I think a lot of members of the board of the public may be generally aware of the stages of development of a well pad, but could you walk through those and just go through each step of pad development?
Yeah, so the first thing we have to do is, build the pad and the access road. And then our vertical drilling rig comes in. That usually takes about a week or what. And then we come in and drill the horizontal portion with the rig rig. That usually takes about 2 weeks per well. And then the frac process, the hydraulic fracturing, takes about 10 to 12 days a well, depending on lateral length and stages. And the pad goes into permanent production.
And permanent production can last, obviously, many years.
Yes. Yeah.
Of all those stages, when is the lowest traffic level to and from the site?
Permanent production.
And what kind of traffic level do you see coming in and out of the site when it goes into permanent production?
You'll have about 5 water trucks per day at first, and then it will, as the well ages, it will diminish over time. We also have a lease operator, so once a day in a pickup truck, a lease operator will stop and check on that well site.
How many water trucks, after the pad's been in production for some time, typically will visit the site on a daily basis?
It'll go down to 2 to 3, and we have some of our older sites that we're at 1 water truck a week that are, that we did back in 2010.
Okay. So the highest level of truck traffic, on the other hand, would be when?
The hydraulic fracturing process.
And that's the domain, that's your job responsibility to handle, oversee that, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You know, just generally speaking, what are the typical sources of water? What types of water and what are the sources?
So we'll use two types of water. We do use fresh water. So we'll get fresh water from public water supplies. So PA American in this area is typically the public water source. We also have a river withdrawal on the Ohio River in West Virginia. And we do have a few stream or creek sources that we use. The other type of water other than local water is we do use reuse water. So any water that is created in range operations, so production, flowback, containment water, we will actually use that water back in the frac process. So kind of one of the things that I'm very proud of our team is that we are 100% recycled. So any water range creates, we will use. Also from a reuse perspective, we will take other operators' water and use that in our operations as well. And that cuts down on the volume of fresh water that we're needing to use.
And how does water end up? What are the primary ways in which water ends up on a well site?
We either pipe it from the source, wherever that may be, with temporary transfer line, or we truck it with water trucks.
Okay. In broadly speaking, what is Range's goal as it relates to water usage?
But, you know, I hate to say this with our logistics team, but trying to eliminate water trucks on secondary roads. We try and stick to main roads near public water supplies so that we can pipe as much water as possible, but also keep our truck traffic on primary roads and main roads.
Shifting gears now, let's talk about what the plan is for water sourcing as it relates to the Connor well pad. And the predicate to that, I don't know whether you're going to show the screen or my colleague, Mr. Younger, is, but we're going to project share a copy of Exhibit 8, which was the overall aerial map of the township that was identified by Mr. Matz. So if you give us a moment here to get that up and running. But we have that request that you would allow us to do that. So.
I can share it, Blaine. It just says I'm not able to.
You should be able to now.
Okay.
That's Max. Okay, that's good. Is that your? Is that your arrow, Max? Or would you pull it out of the way? So, okay. So, will the water sourcing for Connor involve a mixture of reused water and fresh water?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, let's talk first about the reused water. What's its source? Where's it going to travel from, et cetera?
It'll be sourced from range operations. So any production pads we have or flowbacks we have going on. So it will travel along Route 50 and then go north on Grange Road.
And when you say travel on Route 50, that's generally coming from the west?
Correct, yes, sir.
Mr. Younker's trying to trace the route here for you. And what's the projected average hourly truck traffic for this amount of reused water?
Typically it's 5 5 and 7 trucks per hour.
And what percentage of the overall water supply to Connor would you estimate at present the plan is as far as you reuse water?
We shoot for about 40% reuse water on a typical frac.
Okay, so that reused water, when it's trucked on Route 50 and up Main Road, how's it stored at the site?
The trucks will offload the water into 350 barrel vertical frac tanks inside a secondary container.
And the tanks, are they covered on top?
Yes, they're closed top.
Will there be any open impoundments for either fresh water or reused water at the Connor pad?
No.
So let's shift gears now and talk a little bit about fresh water. So if the reused water is about 40% of the source, then I assume roughly 60% will be fresh water.
Yes.
And what will the route be for those trucks?
The fresh water we are going to pipe in from an adjacent township, run through temporary water line to the well site.
And specifically, when you say adjacent township, would that be the temporary water lines coming in from the west, from Mount Pleasant Township?
Correct, yes.
And will some of those temporary water lines also service the Schultz pad?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, it's, water trucks are your specific domain, but there'll be some other large vehicles that will be necessary to access the Connor pad, is that right?
Yes.
And for example, the sand trucks and the big movements of the rig. Is that right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Now, some of that others are more knowledgeable about, but as far as generally speaking, you as part of your job responsibility, you're familiar with some of the sourcing and routes for those other vehicles, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And what would you anticipate here as far as the route to and from the site?
Again, it would be Route 50. Right now, we don't know which direction or what pad the rig or equipment will be on before this. East or west on Route 50, and then north on Grange Road.
So, is there a potential relationship between the operations, the water operations you anticipate on the Connor pad and the Schultz pad, which will be the subject of the next hearing?
Yes, sir.
And what is that?
So we have looked at possibly using the Connor as a source for the Schultz. So we would truck the water into the Connor and then pump it back to the Schultz.
That would be the temporary water lines?
Correct.
And I assume that would use the same route you were talking about, Route 50 to Grange Road to the pad, is that right?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Now, if you don't do that, what would the route be that Range would have to use to provide reused water to the Schultz pad?
We would have to use the turnpike to or Reesing. I'm not sure which one if I'm saying that.
Can I ask you just if you can stick to the Connor annual one right now, just because the advertisement said that we would be doing Connor annual tonight and sort of tomorrow.
Well, we're just going to touch on this briefly because part of Range's request here is the ability to have reused water tank that at Connor and then go over to Schultz. So this will only take one more minute, but there is an interrelationship there, but it'll be addressed again as part of the Schultz pad too.
Yeah, it needs to be